This is Krystof from Gravethorn, and you are listening to the Dan Shan Show.
Hey, Krystof, how's things in the city of sin, Las Vegas? I love that place. Not been for many years. How is it?
Still very sinful. It's a wonderful place. It's a hard place to get out of once you're here. That's for sure. That's why everybody comes back.
So that's very true. I've been 4 times. I want to go back again. So let's get it straight. You have been there since 2008. What took you to Vegas from Massachusetts, which is like, how many thousand miles away from Vegas?
It's a little over 3,000 miles away. The reason why I moved here, quite honestly, is my allergies in Massachusetts were out of control and nothing really worked. So the doctors told me move to the beach or move to the desert. And I can't afford a beach home, so here I am.
Wow. That's of all the places, mate, of all the places to go to. So before we get into the music, what's it like coming from Las Vegas? Do you indulge?
To be honest, I quit drinking in 2009.
Okay.
I went into the hospital with the beginning stages of liver failure, and I had a choice of either, live or die. So I chose to quit drinking, and a couple of years later, they legalized marijuana. So I picked that back up again. Recreationally, and so that's where I'm at. It gives me a little thing to unwind, and that's about all my vices, though.
So with me doing Stoptober, no wonder you've got faith in me, right?
Absolutely, I have a lot of faith in you. You can do this.
I can do it. Thank you, mate. And there's one more question about Vegas. I'm seeing a lot of footage of it lately. This huge sphere that's opened. It looks absolutely out of this world, literally.
I haven't been to it live. You two just did the debut opening night the other night, and I know friends that went, and from the video footage I've seen, it looks amazing. And everybody I know that's been there said it was just unbelievable. You cannot believe this until you see it. And even the video footage just looked incredible.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing something there.
Absolutely. Right.
It's pretty wild seeing it from a distance because it's lit up on the outside too.
So how far away from the strip are you?
My house is probably about 20 minutes to a half hour, depending on traffic.
Yeah, I say traffic's usually a bit thick in Vegas, isn't it?
Yeah, I work right on the strip, so I have to deal with it regardless.
We'll get into that as well because I want to talk to you about that. But first of all, down to the business of music. Your outfit, the awesome Gravethorn, released Underground Rituals of Those Unseen back in June. It's a few months old now. Now it's got into people's heads and the earworms are going on. How has the reaction been?
Well, thank you for the kind words. The reaction has been outstanding, and it's outperformed beyond my wildest dreams. We've got people all over the world contacting us for interviews, distribution, been contacted by a few labels, and just people all over loving it. Social media has been great, and seeing the reports back from Spotify, it's literally been played everywhere, and it's blown my mind. I didn't think it would get this much traction so soon.
When I first heard it, I was like, yes, this is what I want to hear. But why do you think that what you've created is getting such traction?
I'll be honest with you. I have no idea. There's so many great bands out there that are releasing so much awesome material, and for mine to stick out the way it has, I'm truly flattered and honored, and I'm glad that the people that want to hear it are getting a hold of it, because that's really what music is for. It's for anybody that is open to hear it. Absolutely. And I just hope whoever's listening to it, it's putting them in a place of mind that they want to be. So exactly. I wish I could tell you how, the formula to how it's being so successful. I don't know. Yeah. It's just, for whatever reason, it's resonating really well with a lot of people, and I'm ecstatic about that.
Just out of interest, how would you like to think that the listener would listen to your music? Would you like them to be like walking through the woods, or in the gym, or in a long car drive? How would you, or sitting by the fire with candles with a glass of wine? How would you want them to listen to it?
All of the above, because everybody has their own atmosphere that they are able to open up to the most when they're listening to their music. So sometimes it is that walk through the forest, and sometimes it is that car ride. I like to listen to it. I like to just put headphones on and close my eyes and just, drift off into my own little world. But, wherever anybody feels the need to get into that place, I just want their mind to be open with as few distractions as possible, and they'll be able to soak up the most of Gravethorn that way.
Right. Now, before we delve deeper on the album, can we just go back a little bit? Can you clear one thing up for me? This is your project, but you've pulled in a band around you. Is that correct?
Yes, it started out as just a solo project. I bought this equipment and I built a recording studio in my spare bedroom during the pandemic shutdowns.
Right.
And it was mainly just to keep busy. I was in a band prior. I did that for the sole purpose of learning how to mix recordings because we weren't happy with our last recording, and that band broke up. So I started just messing around. I had enough material. Eventually, I released a few singles, and then I had enough material to release a whole CD. So that's what I did, and I was really happy with how it came out. And my drummer from my previous band, Bob Hill, amazing drummer, and he told me, I just want to start jamming to your stuff. And I said, that's great. I'd love to have you on. I didn't think it was going to be his type of thing because he's more of a brutal death metal guy, but he's very open-minded. And this guy, Robert Emerson, who plays lead guitar on March of the Savages, I actually tattooed him, and that's how I met him. And we got to talking, and he's a metal guy, just moved here from Japan not too long ago. And I tried to get him into my last band because one of the other members had left, and it just didn't work out that way. But he said he'd like to do this as well. So I have 3 out of 5 members so far, and the door's still open for 2 more. We still need a bass player and an additional guitar player. But yeah, it's weird how doors open like that, and they certainly have. So this is really moving along quite well.
So your previous band, was it similar? What you're doing in the blackened death metal, is that what you were doing before?
Similar, yeah. It's funny. I have kind of this there's too many genres of metal in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I kind of mocked it a little bit. We decided to create yet another genre. So we tried to market ourselves as heathen war metal, which is, kind of another term for blackened death metal.
Yeah.
It had a lot of thrash influences to it as well. But the Gravethorn stuff, a lot of the material on here, I actually had ideas for the last band, and for whatever reason, they just didn't get pushed through. So I didn't want them to go to waste. So that was another reason why I had so much going into this, because I had it all banked in my head.
Well, that leads me perfectly into the next question. With all that in mind, how do you go about the writing and recording process? Do you solely do it on your own, or do you like to bring outside influences or potential bandmates to come and write with you?
I wrote all the material on this release by myself, and honestly, there's no rhyme or reason. Ideas just pop into my head, and a lot of it is stuff that never should have popped into my head because I don't have a formal music training background. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine once told me that's the ghosts within the ether. They're giving you ideas. So sometimes these ideas they get in my head, and I feel like I have to play it or learn how to play it to get it out and record it because I feel it's that important for people to hear. And other times it gets into my head. Unfortunately, I'm driving, and by the time I get home, I forget all about it. So it's forever in the ether. Yeah.
And those hour on the road a day with all that mind going on, all those Las Vegas drives. So
yes,
talking of that, I mean, I think I can pick through some things from your lyrics and from your social posts and stuff. But what lyrical themes are flowing through the tracks?
A lot of it is just it's about overcoming oppression, overlords, things like that. I think everybody in them has has a certain amount of fight in them when they're sick of being ruled in one capacity or another, whether it's religious or political or just society. And you have one group of people that thinks they're better than another group of people. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are just sick of it and they've had it. And even though my lyrics mostly contain themes about when the Christians conquered the world and it was either join us or die kind of thing, eventually there had to be people to stand up to that. But I think that applies to a lot of different situations, whether it's even just as simple as the workforce, when you're being unfairly treated. A lot of it can apply in those areas.
Are you finding that a lot of the, U.S. politics that the rest of the world are looking at with a big magnifying glass, how over your country, do you find that creeps in? It must be, from what you just said, it must be some things coming from that.
I'll be honest with you. I try to stay out of the political realm over here. It's a mess. I don't like it at all. And, it's kind of an embarrassment, to be honest with you, from my perspective anyway. It seems like there's 2 people that people feel they can vote for. I don't think either one of them are good choices. It's embarrassing that that's the best that they could come up with. But I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Okay, no problem. Now you got some guests on the album. I think you've mentioned, obviously you've got people, friends, and people coming in. You probably want in the band. Who are the guests on the album? How did they come about? Did you tattoo them
all? Let's see. I tattooed Robert. I tattooed Josh. I tattooed Glenn. I did not tattoo, and Brian Krapser. I tattooed. So Brian Krapser and Joshua Bednarski. Brian Krapser does lead guitar on Thorn Wrapped Chaos.
Yeah.
And Josh Bednarski does lead guitar on With an Axe to Grind. I've known those guys since my Massachusetts days. I actually have been in bands with them in the past. And they're just phenomenal guitar players. So when I was doing this as a solo project, I thought, wouldn't that be cool if I could get some of the people I've jammed with in the past and kind of it'd be like a family reunion on an album type of a thing.
Nice.
So that's why I wanted to pull them in. And I was really happy that they had time to do it. My friend Dave Sharp, he was going to appear on it, but things just didn't line up logistically as far as when he was able to have access to his recording gear. He's an amazing, amazing guitar player. He's in a band called End Time Illusion, and he's also played lead guitar when Dave Ellefson from Megadeth toured with his Megadeth thing.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal musician. Glenn Lay, he is on. I'm drawing a blank right now. He's on Thorn Wrapped Chaos.
Yeah.
And he was in my last band, Achromatica. And again, he's another phenomenal guitar player. I was really happy to have him on it. And Robert Emerson, of course, I met him when I tattooed him, and he did March of the Savages. And again, another super amazing guitar player. He reminds me a lot of my friend Dave Sharp back home. So I was really happy to get him on.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, a few weeks ago, you released a fantastic cover of Metallica's Creeping Death. What made you choose that track? What an effort that was, mate. It's awesome.
Thank you very much for that compliment, because it was kind of scary releasing that, because I know there's a lot of Metallica diehards that would say, oh, that's absolute garbage. You shouldn't have ruined it, things like that. And they're entitled to their opinion. I understand that. Metallica, when I was a teenager, they were my favorite band, and Creeping Death was that song was just so cool to me. It always stuck in my head. I named my first car Creeping Death because it was just this big obnoxious hot rod, loud and fast, and it was everything almost like metal should be. So that's why I named it that. And it was just such a great song. And once upon a time, Metallica was an underground band. People tend to forget that. So it was hard to get a hold of their stuff. And there was a certain mystique about Metallica and Slayer and Megadeth and all those guys. But yeah, I really liked that song. It was one of my favorite songs as I was a teenager back in the 80s. So I thought it would be a great thing to kind of give it an updated version, and maybe, turn a lot of people onto it that never heard the old one before. Because there's a lot of people that think the Black Album is the first Metallica album, still to this day.
Of course.
Yeah.
And
so hopefully we turned some people onto it.
Definitely great effort. I played a few times on the show, so I think there's a lot of fans out there for that. Now,
thank you very much.
Going from that, you said Metallica's favorite band. I was going to ask you what got you into this whole metal thing. This whole genre fluid, whatever, blackened death sound. What bands took you there? Obviously, Metallica is one of them. As you developed a little bit more, I daren't say maturity, when you go into like your Scandinavian black metal and stuff like that. What got you to that point there from your teenager Metallica days? Well,
I mean, fortunately, I'm old enough where a lot of this stuff was happening, and I was old enough to comprehend it as it was happening. So it's not like I'm throwing back to like, oh, I was into these bands before I was born or anything like that.
No.
I was really into Metallica, and the Injustice for All album I thought was great. And then there was a long time where they were touring to support that. So during that time between Injustice for All and the Black Album, there was a lot of heavy bands coming out on, Roadrunner Records and Earache Records. You had the whole New York death metal scene with Cannibal Corpse and Suffocation and, those guys. And then you had the European scene. You had Entombed and Unleashed and Dark Throne and bands like that I was really getting into. And then Dark Throne came out with A Blaze in the Northern Sky. It's funny, I'm plugging it. I happen to be wearing the shirt. They came out with A Blaze in the Northern Sky, and that was I had never heard anything like that at the time. I was just like, wow, this is incredible. This is the first music I've ever listened to where I actually felt cold listening to it. It was just, it
No.
was unbelievable. And we played it at a party, and some people liked it, some people didn't. And from there, I was kind of hooked on like more stuff that sounded like that. And I discovered Immortal, and I discovered Mayhem, and
Mm.
it kind of reminded me of the early Bathory stuff, but just a lot faster for some reason,
Yeah.
which I didn't think would have been possible at the time. Then Emperor came out, and that really opened my eyes to like, wow, these symphonic feelings towards it. You close your eyes and you can actually see forests and mountains and landscape. This is unbelievable. So then it snowballed from there, and I got into the old Cradle of Filth stuff, which was good. And that sort of music, it just keeps producing great stuff. I mean, now I'm really big on Black Braid, and they just kind of came out of nowhere, and they're incredible. And I'm just really happy to be a part of that genre. And I like adding a little bit of the death metal stuff because it just gives it that heavy chunk. Like, okay, not only am I on the spiritual journey, but I'm gonna stomp somebody's head that gets in my way now.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
So I think it's an interesting mix. With blackened death metal, you really get the best of both worlds, and I think it justifies itself as having its separate genre, even though I'm sick of all the subgenres.
Yeah. I get it. So, but Las Vegas, as you said, you're from Las Vegas. You're a tattoo artist that works out of Las Vegas, and as you said, it's on the Strip as well. So, metal and tats go hand in hand, as we all know. You must have got some out of towners wanting some crazy shit done, right? I mean, if you're right on this Strip, you must be inundated with some crazy ideas. What's the craziest tattoo what's the craziest thing you've tattooed?
After a while, nothing really seems crazy anymore. I've been doing this for 26 years.
The first crazy, you're like, what the fuck am I doing here? Why am I doing this?
Yeah. This was back in Massachusetts. I tattooed a straight line going from a girl's armpit to her ankle.
Right. Okay.
And
how straight
I worked
was
in
it?
this college town. Well, I had to warn her. I said, you have curves, and your body isn't a perfect cylinder, so there's going to be warps and wobbles and things like that. I asked her, what was the reason you wanted this? And she said it was just to remind herself that we're all nothing more than stick figures. And I'm like, okay. And when I told her that it wouldn't be a perfectly straight line because of the warps and stuff, she said that's even better because we're all flawed in our own way. So I thought that was pretty crazy.
Deep thinking.
Yeah. And one of the funniest ones I ever did was there was a big LBGT community in this town before LBGT was a thing. But this lesbian and her girlfriend came in, and about as far down as I could go without violating her, she shaved it up, and she wanted some Skittles tattooed there with the word "Taste the Rainbow" underneath it. So I thought that was really great.
Have you ever done like band logos or anything like that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've done the Metallica logo a bunch of times. I've done the Pantera logo, Slayer. I just recently did a really fun Judas Priest one with the razor blade on it, and it looks like it's actually cutting into the skin. My my favorite band related tattoo I did. I wish I had a recent picture of it because this was back in like 2006. The album cover for Death Leprosy. I did that, and if you Google Death Leprosy tattoo by Krystof, it generally pops right up, and that was probably my favorite metal one that I've done.
That's very cool. Mate, when I'm next in Vegas, I'm coming to see you for something.
I hope you do. Just even come by and say hi.
For sure. Well, I will. Now on to you. So the Las Vegas thing, what's the metal scene like in Las Vegas? You have some great bands come through the town, obviously, but what about the locals? Is there a metal community there in Vegas?
It's a pretty anemic metal community, if I do say so myself.
Yeah. I can believe that.
It's hard. I think when talking to people everywhere, though, the metal scene isn't what it was back in the early 90s.
No.
But and there's a lot of reasons why. You can blame the internet, you can blame the lack of creativity or what have you. But when a big band comes through here, like in December we had Cannibal Corpse with Dark Funeral and Immolation that came through. Yeah. It was a huge show. But we were also getting a lot of people coming in from out of town because Vegas is a destination place. But a lot of times when the local bands play, you're getting 40 or 50 people, and a lot of that is the other band members' girlfriends and stuff like that. So it's not a huge scene, but I think it's on an upswing. I think it's starting to grow, and you got some great bands out here, and you also have Roger from Mortician has a record store out here called Primitive Recordings, and it's all just death metal and cool stuff like that. And I think that's helping build the scene up as well. So I gotta give props to that.
Absolutely. Now, talking to gigs, what's happening with Gravethorn gigs? Have you got any shows under your belt yet? I mean, and when it does, or if it has happened, what's a show going to be like? How do you envisage a show to be like? What's cracking off?
Well, we have no shows under our belt yet because we still have to complete the lineup of the band.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for the right people to come along. And I don't think the stuff that I wrote is very complex. It's, we just need solid players that can play the stuff and that they're reliable, they have their own gear. The whole usual, you got to have a job. You got to not be a drug addict. The stuff that we just, you would expect out of any human being. But be surprised how hard that is to come by.
Yeah, I believe it. I know.
Yeah, show up for practice. That's a good thing.
So are they on the horizon? Is that what you would like to do? Is that the plan?
Yes, we would absolutely love to be in the position where we can play some shows. I want to get out to Europe and play some of these festivals, man, because they don't have stuff like that here. There is one coming up in October called the LA's Gates of Metal Festival. Unfortunately, I have to work during that, so I won't be able to attend it. But it looks pretty promising that they're going to try to do a European style festival here. It's going to be outdoors and stuff like that, so that'll be interesting to see. But I definitely, Wacken is a dream gig, Bloodstock, all those open air type of festivals. That would be amazing to get on one of those.
That's the thing with the States, isn't it? I mean, you have these multi-genre, music festivals. You'll have Weezer headlining with Mayhem and those kind of things. It's just crazy. I look at them and think, how are they getting these bands who've got like Dua Lipa with, Metallica? It's like, I can't get my head around this.
I'm going to be honest with you. The metal scene in the United States, I don't think it comes anything close to what's going on in Europe. There's definitely metalheads here, and the metalheads are very, very dedicated and very loyal to the metal that they like. But there's just not as much of them. So that's why they have to pad a gig with somebody that sells more records and gets a bigger audience to get more people in it. It is crazy when you think about it, but that's just how it works here. Whereas I see these concerts in Europe and I look at these flyers on these metal fests, and it's like, that's a dream show right there. Why can't that happen here? But, when you have 10 or 12 amazing bands, but there's going to be 300 people showing up at it or 500 people, how do you pay those bands out?
You find just a lot of bands have problems getting into the States. So I remember Frost from Satyricon had a problem many years ago. Satyricon had to bring another drummer in. It's like Frost couldn't get in for whatever misdemeanor he might have done in his past. He couldn't get into the country. It's like, good God, you know what I mean?
Well, our country does have a lot of enemies trying to get in here, so they are kind of. They're being a little strict on who comes in, who's not, and that's not necessarily a bad thing when you consider how many enemies we have. So
it's true. I don't think Frost was though.
I don't think he's one of the enemies of our country, but you know what? Sometimes there's some outdated ways of thinking, like, oh, this guy could be a threat when he's really not.
Sure. So I'm going to ask this question now because it's usually the last question I ask when I speak to a band or an outfit or an artist from the States. Who has metal the best, US or Europe? But I think you've answered the question.
Oh man. Well, as far as bands go, there's phenomenal bands from both sides. As far as fans go, I think the European fans are probably a little more energetic towards the whole lifestyle and a little bit, it's insane what's going on in Europe. And I remember, the States had a similar scene like that back in the early 90s, like I said. But that's tough to say as far as the bands go, because there's great stuff from both sides. It's just that over here they're not getting the exposure that they are in Europe. So I don't want to slam the music here completely.
Sure, of course not. What music do you enjoy away from metal?
I like classic rock. I like blues. I like jazz. I'm pretty open. I'm not really big into pop music or hip hop. I don't really get into too much. But otherwise, I enjoy hearing something, especially the first time you hear it and it clicks with you. That's always a fun experience too.
Yeah, of course. Now I've got some random questions for you, Krystof. Are you ready for some of these random questions I'm going to throw at you?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. What's one thing everyone should try at least once?
One thing that everyone should try at least once. A medium rare steak.
What would your autobiography be called?
Don't be like me.
Okay, here's one. If you could steal credit for any piece of art, song, film, book, etc., which one would you claim?
Wow. Wow, that's a really good question. How about Bing Crosby's White Christmas, since that was the most successful single of all time, and then
Wow.
I could claim the money for it anyway.
Yeah,
And then
I think I would say something similar like Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas." 'Cause I think she makes something
yeah,
like 500,000 a year for doing absolutely cool. So that's not
that's
bad.
not a bad business plan.
Okay, next up, if you could have any superpower hero, what power would you have and why?
When I was a little kid, I wanted to be like Hulk because he was just so strong.
Yeah,
He could
strong
smash
strength.
through anything. Now, I don't know. I think I'd kind of like to transcend between dimensions. So maybe is there a ghost kind of a superhero?
Yeah,
I
well,
don't follow the comics.
yeah, we'll go something like that. Now, a couple more left. If you could choose one song, this is a good one, this one. If you could choose one song to play every time you walked into the room for the rest of your life, what song would you choose and why?
Ooh, my own personal soundtrack, huh?
No, like just like like walking into Back in Black or doing something like cracking up. As soon as
Yeah.
you walk into a doctor's surgery and it's playing, or any club, or as soon as you walk into work or home, it's playing like a little intro
You know,
track.
what's funny is I'm such a scatterbrain, so this answer could change on a daily
Yeah,
basis or
well, I
even
want
an
your answer
hourly
now. I want
basis.
your live answer right now.
All right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to kind of self promote a little bit.
Good.
The beginning of March of the Savages,
Yeah.
because when I wrote that as the kind of like our version of when Slayer has their anthem song that everybody knows
Yeah.
as soon as that first riff comes on. So that's what I did with March of the Savages. I wanted that anthem where like that comes on, it's Gravethorn right out
I
of the gate.
love
So
it.
that would be my soundtrack.
I love it. Next one. What's the most used emoji on your phone?
Oh, I think I just do the yellow thumbs up. I'm not
Thumbs
one of
up.
those emoji guys.
Straightforward, no problem. So back to the music, Graythorn. What's on the bucket list? Are you wanting to take this far and wide? I think you said you wanted to go to the Europe and stuff like that. What would be on the bucket list for you guys?
Yeah, Europe and just how cool would that be if I was watching UFC and one of the fighters was coming out to my music? That would be
Yeah,
amazing. And
that's amazing.
let's
Yeah,
let's do a gig with Iron Maiden if we can.
yeah, nice.
I'm just gonna shoot for the stars, and if I miss,
Exactly.
I'll still get pretty far.
For sure, man, for sure. So what's happening next for Graythorn? You got the awesome album out. You released a new single of cover of Metallica. What's next?
There's a label that we're talking with. Things are looking pretty promising. We're just going over the fine print and having our
Great.
discussions on our end of what they're offering. But I think there might be a record contract in the very near future. So
Amazing.
that's the next hurdle, and that would be my first. So that's a major accomplishment for me.
That's amazing. Great. So last of all, what one track should I play next from the new album? And also give me a favorite track to play from your metal collection. So 2 tracks.
Okay, my favorite. Let's see. Off of the Gravethorn album, I will say I'm really surprised. Like Kingdom of Vines, I actually wrote pieces of that song almost 10 years ago. Oh, over 10 years ago. I was living in Massachusetts.
Wow.
And I thought that would have gained a little more traction than it has. And
Right.
it just hasn't, but I thought it was a great song. So let's play that one.
Okay. Yeah. And then
And as far
a
as
favorite track from your metal collection. Again, just
oh boy,
top of your head. You know what I mean? Like, how you feeling now? Maybe you've heard in the last couple of days or something.
something from Watain.
Yes,
or
always.
Conjuring the Dead by Belphegor. Either one of those.
Okay. What from Watain? Give me a track.
The Child Must Die.
No problem. Okay, thanks, Krystof, for the chat. Really appreciate it. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the future holds for you, and I will be keeping in touch.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the interview, and this was a great interview with very well thought questions, and you don't get that too often, so I appreciate it.